Alright YouTube, welcome back to the channel. My name is Ilias. I'm a photographer located in Athens, Greece. And in today's video, we're going to talk about my whole experience with the Nikon Zfc as my main workhorse for all my photography and all my video content over here in this YouTube channel for the past 1 year. So for the past 1 year, this Nikon Zfc has been my main workhorse for all my photography, call it street photography, travel photography, portrait photography, and also on some various professional photography situations like weddings and christenings and stuff like that. And also it's the camera that I'm using in order to record all my YouTube videos like this one that you're watching right now. So I cannot physically hold the camera in order to show it to you, but I will show you some B-roll here and there so I can actually prove the points that I will try to make in this video. So in this video, I'm going to state all the pros and all the cons that I have found after 1 year of heavy use with this camera, and I will break down my thoughts about who this camera is actually for and how it competes with other cameras in the camera industry at this price point. So the first pro and positive that comes on top of my mind is that basically this camera is reliable and durable. It has never failed me. It has been through rain, it has been through snow, through heat waves. I live here in Greece, so we experience a lot of heat waves during the summer, and it has been an amazing workhorse. For example, on a wedding I did about 2 months ago, I was shooting about 12 hours a day and it never failed me once. And after 1 year of heavy use, it doesn't even have a scratch and it keeps going like it's the first time that I'm using it. But again, don't take my word on that and use your camera like that naked on the rain. This is probably going to destroy your camera or damage it. So yeah. Pro number 2 that I want to talk about is basically the color science of this camera. Basically the colors of the pictures that come out of this camera. There's something beautiful, especially if you hit the white balance correctly. And obviously this comes down to personal preference. But personally, when I look at Nikon files, I personally fell in love with them. And when I'm looking, for example, at Sony colors, especially from cameras at this price point, then yeah, personally I can see the difference. Obviously after editing you can fix everything, but a good starting point is always really welcome. Positive number 3, and this might shock a lot of you because Nikon has been really bashed about this all over the web. In my experience, the autofocus of this camera is pretty reliable and it's pretty fast, at least for the use case that I'm doing right now. For photos, it's pretty fast, it's really snappy. I rely on the autofocus for street photography, for my portraits, especially the eye autofocus in these kind of situations, and also on video. Right now I'm using the eye autofocus and it's tracking my eye pretty easily and fast. As you can see, I'm at f1.4 where it's supposed to be struggling, but I can go out of the frame and come in again and it finds my eye exactly like that, really fast. For the use case that I'm doing for vlogging or talking headshots, it's amazing. And also for my photography, like I said, for portraits, street photography, weddings and stuff like that, the eye autofocus and all the other autofocus modes, they're pretty fast and pretty reliable. Let's say, for example, if I take a burst of portraits of 10 shots from a model walking towards me or away from me, I'm pretty sure after a lot of testing on the field, about 8 or 9 or 7 of the shots are going to be tack sharp on the eye, and maybe one of those shots will be slightly out of focus. Let's say it will focus on the eyelash, but again the hit rate is pretty nice. And at this point I need to make a disclaimer: I have never shot sports with this camera, so I don't know how it's going to perform when someone is running, but for the use case that I think most people are going to buy this camera for, it's excellent. Side note, the subject tracking on video, it's not the best, or in photography, but personally I don't use it all that much. I never click on my camera in order to follow a person or something that's moving. I always chase it with my autofocus points, or I use eye autofocus if I'm dealing with a person. So the fourth positive that I want to mention in this video is basically the excellent battery life that this camera has. Me personally, I have only 2 batteries for this camera, the 2 original batteries, the one that came with the body and the one that I purchased after I got the body. And to be honest, each camera lasts me about 4 to 5 hours of shooting, of photography shooting, and for video it's about 1.5 hours straight recording, which is more than enough for my purposes and for my needs. Again, I will bring as example the wedding that I did about 2 months ago, and this was about 12 hours of continuous shooting. Obviously I'm not shooting all the time and I'm taking breaks in between, but these 2 batteries, they didn't die, and I went the whole day with just burning these 2 batteries at the end of the day. So at this point, if you have this camera or thinking about grabbing this camera, I recommend to you to only get one extra original battery. Don't waste your money with third-party ones. They don't last as much as the original ones, and it's going to be a one-time purchase, and it's going to free your hands and save you a lot of time at the end of the day. So the fifth positive that I want to mention in this video is basically that the kit lenses that Nikon has to offer for this camera body and for the Nikon Z50 as well, they're pretty much excellent. They're the best kit lenses out there. Personally, I got my Nikon ZFC with this silver kit lens over here. It's a 16-50. It's really small and lightweight, and it goes perfectly and fits perfectly with the color of my personal Nikon ZFC. And let me tell you, after studying countless of reviews, that these kit lenses, they're the best in the market. They're better than the Sony ones, they're better than the Fuji ones, and they're much better than the disgusting garbage kit lenses that Canon produces for their new mirrorless crop system bodies. This particular kit lens over here is the one that most people are going to get while they're buying the Nikon ZFC, and the images that this can produce, they're simply outstanding. They're really sharp. The difference between these new kit lenses and the older DSLR ones, it's day versus night, basically. And you can see right now on the screen that I'm playing some of the images that I took with this kit lens. I basically used it all of the time on my trip in London a few months back. And yeah, it's a lifesaver because they're really light, they're producing quality pictures. And I think a lot of people that are going to get this camera, they're going to appreciate the images that these new kit lenses produce paired with the Nikon ZFC. The sixth really big positive, especially for me and my use case, is that this camera is probably one of the best YouTube cameras that anyone can buy. As a talking headshot camera, you just set it up on a tripod, and like I said, the autofocus is perfect. It can track me all the time without failing even once. It has that really useful flippy screen, so I can basically vlog with it and look if I'm in focus or look at my framing all the time. Plus the 4K quality and sharpness that comes out of this little camera, I think in my eyes, it's pretty outstanding. I'm at f1.4 right now, so it's not going to be tack sharp on the whole image frame or even at my whole face. But I think the quality of the 4K is pretty outstanding. I'm coming closer in order for you to see the whole, I don't know, waves of sharpness, if that's even a thing right now. I do the lamest test, so I'm sorry about that. But anyways, for a beginner or someone that's not a professional videographer and just wants a camera in order to do YouTube, this is a perfect one. The only downside is that it doesn't have inbuilt image stabilization, which is, I think, important for vlogging, but personally I have never had a problem. Again, for my personal use case, the lack of IBIS is not something that really affects me. And the last positive that isn't really worth mentioning, but for me it's really important. For some of you it might not be that important, but in my eyes it's one of the most beautiful cameras that I have ever seen, and I completely fell in love with it. I was about to buy a Fuji or a Sony about a year ago, but then Nikon released this little beauty. I was literally blown away the moment I saw it. And in my opinion, we need to use cameras that we fell in love with, so it makes our photography experience even more enjoyable. If you're using a camera that you do not like and you're using it just because of its specs or because someone else told you that it's the best camera, especially if you are a hobbyist, I think that you really need to buy a camera that you enjoy using and not necessarily the camera with the best specs out there. Okay, so enough with the praising and all the good stuff. Now it's time to bash this camera also. And the first thing that I want to talk about is basically the ergonomics of this camera. Sadly, this camera comes without a grip, and it's really hard to hold into that for a long period of time. So personally, I bought a small rig grip extension in order to hold it better. And this really made my life easy because I can basically hold it and not feel like it's going to fall out of my hands. And the other issue that I have with the build quality of this camera is basically that in order to turn the dials on top of the body, I need to press down the button that is on top of the dials and basically rotate the dial at the same time while I'm pressing the button. This is really annoying. I would really love if I could just press once the button turn the dial and then press the button again in order to lock in place. But again, that's something really minor that you get used to, and you can always transfer the use case of the shutter speed dial on another dial on the back of the camera body, so you can quickly change your shutter speed with your thumb over here. So yeah, personally, I changed my aperture and my shutter speed quickly with the newer dials, and I changed my ISO with a more traditional dial, which is on top of the camera. One other thing that I want to mention again, since we're talking about the ergonomics, is again the fact that the camera doesn't have weather sealing. And as a person which really loves lightweight cameras, and I want to bring this exact camera all over the world, on my trips, on my hikes, I really wanted this camera to be weather sealed in order to be sure that it's not going to break down. Sadly, this is not the case, and it's such a bummer because it's a really small, lightweight camera, especially with the kit lenses, so it would be really nice if this camera was weather sealed. But again, it's something that we have to work around, or simply get the camera with weather sealing. The second negative, in a way, is the low megapixel count. Basically, this camera comes with 21 megapixels only. I say only because 21 megapixels are more than enough for every social media work or for any medium-sized print. I printed a lot of photo books for my clients this summer, and the pictures look beautiful. This is going to be a problem only if you want to print really large images, like let's say billboards in a way, or if you're a photographer or a person that really likes to crop in on your images. The lower the megapixel count is in our camera, the less we can crop without losing quality from our picture. The next negative that bothers me about this camera is the fact that it doesn't have 4K 60, and you might think that, okay, it's fine, you got 1080 60, 1080 to 120 frames per second, but I think at this time and age, and with the fact that many other cameras at this price point offer 4K 60, I would love for Nikon to have made the step in order to put 4K 60 in this camera. And since we're talking about the video, I want to state the fact that this camera doesn't offer log as well. You can only use a flat profile if you want to get creative with your colors and stuff like that. And again, the flat profile is beautiful and really easy to use for beginners in order to grow into the color grading space. But after a year or so, you really grow out of this flat profile and you want to have the option in order to shoot log. Again, this wouldn't be a problem if other companies didn't include it as well, but Canon does it, Sony does it, and Fuji does it in most of their cameras at this price point. And the last negative that I can think about after using this camera for about 1 year is basically the small lens lineup. What this means is basically that Nikon has put out these kit lenses and they basically forgot that the Nikon Z crop system exists. We don't get any prime lenses at all, and personally I won't adapt an older prime lens from the DSLR days in this new mirrorless body. First of all, the Nikon Zfc looks disgusting with the adapter in front and an old lens from the DSLR days. And secondly, it's a pain in the ass in order to always switch lenses, switch adapters, in, out, in, out. I don't want to bother myself that way. I know I might sound silly right now, but that's just the way I operate with my cameras. I want to make my photography simple, and the fact that I need to buy an adapter in order to explore many new lenses doesn't make my photography experience all that smooth. And I think this camera is meant to be smooth. It's meant to be stylish. It's meant to be a small backup camera that basically records each day of your life, and by bringing adapters into play, you really take away from all that smooth experience that this camera offers. So again, Sigma doesn't produce anything, Tamron doesn't produce anything, but thankfully we got Viltrox into the play, which produces low budget prime lenses. Personally, I use the 23mm 1.4 and the 85mm 1.8, which is a full frame lens, by the way. And I used both of these lenses for my professional work during summer, and I was blown away by their quality and by their autofocus capabilities as well, because I didn't know if a third-party lens could autofocus so reliably with this newer body. And the next lens that I will buy for sure is the Viltrox 13mm 1.4. I think it's the perfect wide-angle lens for crop sensor cameras, and for the price, nothing beats this bad boy. If this Viltrox lens had Nikon labeled on top of it, it would cost over $1,000 for sure. So yeah, thank you Viltrox for spotting that huge gap on the market, and while Nikon is asleep and does nothing about us, Viltrox capitalized on that and they brought us some lenses, and I know a lot of users that went out and bought these lenses as well for them. So now that we got the positives and the negatives out of our way, and you can judge for yourself if this camera is for you. I want to talk briefly about which cameras are the opposition for the Nikon Zfc. In my opinion, the best camera at this price point is the Fuji X-S10. The Fuji X-S10 offers inbuilt image stabilization, it offers log, it offers 4K 60, it also offers weather sealing, and basically offers every single thing that the Nikon Zfc should offer. From Sony we got the a6400, which is a really fast and reliable camera even for its age, but again, in my opinion, the colors that come out of this camera for video and for photo, they're not pleasing at all. Old Sony color science, again, in my eyes, is terrible. And lastly, Canon produced the Canon R10, which is an amazing camera. It's a really powerful camera, but the crappy kit lenses and the fact that Canon banned every third-party lens optic, in my opinion, makes it for me really hard to recommend them. And I'm going to do a small rant over here, but what the fuck is Canon actually doing? They bring out garbage lenses for their beautiful cameras, especially at this price point, and they don't allow other companies to sell better lenses than they do. So I don't know how this is consumer friendly. Obviously the pros are going for the high-end cameras and the high-end lenses, but for someone that is just getting started and want to have his hands on more lenses and more opportunities, what the fuck? I literally do not understand what Canon is doing, so yeah, fuck Canon at this point. So who is this camera for? I think this camera is for the everyday person that wants a small camera, a small beautiful camera that talks to him and his soul in order to capture every single day of his life or the most important parts of his life. It can be a perfect YouTube camera as well if you want to start your own YouTube channel or you want to produce some higher quality video from, let's say, your older DSLR or from your phone. And it could also be a beautiful backup camera for any pro out there, for any wedding photographer, for any event photographer, because again, I have tested this camera in professional situations and it's really reliable and the results are pretty awesome. Obviously, it's not full frame magic with big bokeh and stuff like that because it's a crop sensor camera, but as a backup camera, it can really get handy, especially at this price point. And again, if I could travel back in time about a year ago, I would again buy this camera for sure. I enjoy every minute spending with this camera and I have created some of my favorite images by using this Nikon Zfc, and that's why I will continue using it. Since it's making me enjoy my photography and my craft, then I think this is the perfect camera for me right now, and I think I covered pretty much everything by now. So anyways, this is where I'm going to end the video. Thank you so much for sticking till the end. If you did that, you're a legend. If you enjoyed this video or if you found it helpful, maybe consider liking it. And if you're new here, you want to see more content with the Nikon Zfc out on the field, maybe even subscribe. This would be awesome and you can always unsubscribe later. But if you hate my face or you hate me or my photography in general, you can always go to the next person. It's fine, I get it. We cannot be liked by everyone. But anyways, this is where I'm going to leave you guys. Thank you so much for spending some of your time by watching my content. This really means the world to me. Enjoy a small slideshow with my favorite images that this camera has produced for me. And yeah, see you next time. Take care. Peace.